In Washington, major reforms to the criminal justice system are being debated by members of Congress and the White House. But it's not just political partisans taking part in this conversation. Hoping to bring public awareness about some of the many issues associated with incarceration is a group of artists who know the criminal justice system from the inside. PBS NewsHour Weekend special correspondent Alison Stewart reports.
It took artist Jesse Crimes 3 years to make a 30-foot wide mural out of bed sheets called Apocalyptine 1638967. The work was recreated at a former penitentiary in Philadelphia that's now a museum. The title of the work means apocalypse and includes Crimes' inmate number. He made the piece while serving 4.5 years in federal prison.
This work in particular is kind of a culmination of that event, and knowing that I made it through that situation and didn't end up conforming to the idea that I'm a criminal or the idea that I'm something other.
In 2009, he was arrested for dealing drugs shortly after graduating from college with an art degree.
I think, like most Americans, I had a very different conception of what going to prison was like. And so when I went in there and I began to notice that, oh wow, everyone's just a normal person, just like I'm a normal person who made a bad decision. And so it made me really angry, right? And so I needed to do something with that frustration and with that anger, and artwork is one of the main ways that I know how to speak and communicate.
Let's get to it.
Communication about imprisonment is at the heart of an experiment. It's called the Right of Return Fellowship. Jesse Crimes and 6 other formerly incarcerated artists from across the country are the first recipients of the award, which gave them each $20,000 to create art about the criminal justice system. It was funded by the Open Philanthropy Project, whose mission, it says, is to improve lives and, quote, to give as effectively as we can and share our findings openly so that anyone can build on our work.
Yeah, and you want to ask them first.
Grant Officer Chloe Coburn focuses on criminal justice reform.
A lot of our grants are about predicting a particular decarceration impact and working back from it and saying how likely is it that this grant will produce that impact. I don't have that type of case with this grant. It's more like a sense. Formerly incarcerated artists coming together, networking, could be a really interesting jumping off point for intervention in this cultural conversation. Let's try something there. So I can be kind of entrepreneurial, experiment with it a little bit.
1/5 of Coburn's $25 million budget goes to entrepreneurial projects like this one. The combination of art and criminal justice reform as a catalyst for change makes sense to Coburn, who is an artist herself and a Harvard-trained lawyer.
What art is pushing towards is this idea of culture change, getting people to kind of see something they didn't see before, become exposed and proximate.
I was arrested when I was 9 months pregnant.
The theory is to bring people with first-hand experience with the justice system into the conversation about what issues need to be addressed.
This fellowship is different in that it's about people and not laws and policies, about specific individuals investing in their leadership to connect to each other and to tell powerful stories as formerly incarcerated people and as artists.
The fellowship was proposed and administered by the Soze Media Agency, an advertising firm co-founded by Michael Skolnick. It was mentioned on Twitter and a few blogs. No one expected what happened next.
We were hoping that we would get maybe 40 entries for the fellowship. We had 327 in a month, in 4 weeks, with no advertising, no billboards, no mass marketing to get folks to respond. It was really word of mouth.
Are there any benchmarks the artists need to meet? Are there any parameters?
They do have to create a piece of art or that is connected to a criminal justice reform campaign. Somebody may make a video for a prosecutorial race in Indiana. Somebody might make a billboard or a dance piece or a poem.
The introductions began at a mandatory fellows workshop in New York City. The artists met with a variety of potential collaborators, including editors from the Marshall Project, a nonprofit news organization covering the U.S. criminal justice system.
I was never one of those people that actually sat down and gave it too much thought other than like doing things that other people thought were creative.
Juan Ortiz was jailed as a teenager for taking part in a car theft. He's now 42 years old with a master's in public policy and art.
Artwork was just the tail end of me trying to do something. For me, a large part of it coalesced around problem solving and like having an idea, an emotion, something I wanted to convey through artwork. Yeah,
As a young man, Ortiz saw many young Latinx people enter the illegal drug trade. Some went to prison, some died. From his perspective growing up on the U.S.-Mexico border, the American appetite for drugs is part of the problem, as he depicts in this drawing that he submitted as part of his fellowship application.
The painting shows Uncle Sam injecting heroin and saying, "This is war, let's do our part," and kind of money falling out of his pockets, and using the border wall as a tourniquet.
His actual fellowship piece uses the wall as a call to unity. It's a mural at the U.S.-Mexico border promoting cooperation. As part of the fellowship, the artists were given a tour of the Whitney Museum's biennial exhibit, which featured several works that showed the power of artistic expression about difficult subjects, something these artists are hoping to accomplish themselves. In his fellowship piece, Crimes plans to document the violence at New York's controversial Rikers Island prison. He wants the piece to be a mobile public artwork so it can reach as many people as possible.
I think one of the main things that art is able to do that other mediums are not, it's much more effective in kind of winning over hearts and minds, and also elevating issues that maybe go unaddressed without some kind of like tangible, visible thing for individuals to interact with.
7 people, it's a small number of people. What difference can giving 7 talented people a nice sum of money, what difference can that make?
I would always tell people, when you give a speech, when I give a speech, and I'd get there and I'd be afraid nobody would show up. If one person shows up, that one person could change your life. You don't know who that person is. So these 7 people, that one piece of art could change one person's life. So we don't know what the reverberation of the inspiration of this art will do. And that's the fun part.